This is the Earth and Cosmic Wisdom series. These are conversations for these evolutionary times with amazing people from diverse backgrounds in Earth wisdom traditions, from more the esoteric realms, and those involved in really being Earth keepers for planet Earth at this time. So today I have a wonderful woman. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before I bring her into the arena here. And her name is Treadway. And Cece is a teacher. She's an energy healer and a multidisciplinary artist. And she is the founder of Lightschool for the Sacred Arts. And this is a mystery school for the sacred artist to study knowledge, esoteric knowledge, healing, personal process, and the deepening of one's own creativity. So Cece brings the feminine qualities very much so of wildness, of sensitivity, of sensuality, and much magic into her work, helping women to release trauma from generations of false patriarchal programs, so that they can awaken to their unlimited, ecstatic, sensual, and creative power. One of her passions is connecting people directly to spirit and really helping them align with their spirit team in order to ignite their soul purpose. So Cece also is such a dynamic woman. She performs sacred music. She is a working and active visual artist. And she also runs transformational workshops in the US and worldwide. And all of these disciplines she's weaving in currently to programs and really potent offerings to people throughout the globe at the moment, as well as working as a personal guide online for healing and transformation. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Cece. I met Cece in 2015 in Sedona in Arizona, which is a very potent place, and received her wisdom personally through the Holy Chalice workshop that she was facilitating with another beautiful sister, Cynthia. So Cece, it's so great to have you here today. And welcome.
So great to be here.
This conversation. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Thank you for that introduction. It sounds way better in an Irish accent. I was like, wow, is that me? Like,
it's nice to hear it reflected back, isn't it, with another edge to it.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you. You're in Eastern US right now. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in New York and about 2 hours north of New York City in the woods. It's very rural up here for people who don't know. New York isn't one big city. It's sometimes people from other countries say that, but they're always surprised by all of the land. And I'm like, it's actually mostly green here. And it's really beautiful right now.
It's a good time of year and a good time to be in the woods as well, with all that is happening right now.
Oh, I mean, I really wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Maybe except Ireland, but you know.
Well, I suppose that's actually such a big part of your work, isn't it? Really, the resourcing from nature and the natural realms and weaving that into your disciplines. That's right?
Yes. I would say that that's the fundamental thing that is brought into my everyday experience, but also my work, my connection with others, my connection with life, experiencing my own evolution through the seasons, through the wheel of the year, just getting to hang out with the deer that likes to come into my lawn, noticing the bear poop in the morning, and just seeing how everything changes. In this particular climate, we experience 4 very distinct seasons, and it's extreme. It's like being in a completely different place each time. And so that actually is great because I like to move around a lot. And so here with 4 such different environments, it's like I'm moving every season without actually having to pack up my house and go anywhere,
That's great. Very diverse.
Yeah.
Well, I see the deer in the background there, and it feels like he's jumping through the camera at me.
He's like,
beautiful.
hi. or she. Yes,
She?
she actually, I painted her when I lived in Miami. I was living in the tropics and it was just all wrong for me. I love the tropics, but living there is not where my soul is from. You know, I think we're all from places. I'm from the forest. And this deer came to me in a dream and told me to paint her. And so in the process of painting her, my entire life like reorganized itself to move up here to the woods. So I keep her on my altar, because she reminds, well, I love her, but also she reminds me every day of the fact that I'm home now.
So she's essentially a guide who's kind of brought you through the dimensions to your perfect place.
I mean, absolutely. And in the dream, I was in jail and she came in and just put her head on my lap and looked up at me with her eye. And I don't know if you ever had animal dreams where you get lost in their eyes. And that happened. It was like the eye transmission, like melted my heart. And then the jail cell melted and we were in the forest.
Oh.
And yeah, it was so powerful, like the innocence in that dream, the essence, the relief was wonderful. So anyway, yes, she's my guide back there. And whenever I do sessions, I mean, I'm usually sitting here, right? So she's there, like with that beautiful heart and that essence and innocence that we all need to or want to feel safe enough to be in. So,
which is
yeah,
so needed right now with such turbulent times where I think people's roots are just being pulled left, right, and center, you know. So there's a lot up for people right now. Would you like to speak to
I
what
mean,
you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one big existential crisis right now for everyone. And so I'll get a lot of texts throughout the week. Like, I don't know if I can do it, if I can go this extra day, or, you know, the disorientation that's happening as we are, all of our, you know, our sense of comfort and security has really been taken away. Even in a ideal situation, I think a lot of us are in much better situations, you know, than others. But it's still terrifying what's happening. It's still terrifying to be in this unknown. We still just need each other so much. We need to come together in groups, if it's online or if it's 6 feet away in distance, and feel held in community, and something larger than ourselves, and in something that's still functioning. And I think actually human beings on the ground day to day are still functioning quite well, and so resourceful and helping each other. I don't know how it's been for you over there, but over here, like the community efforts to make sure the elderly and people who didn't have enough money had food and all that stuff, it started right away. We've been feeding 1,500 people a day in this area, and that it's all volunteer effort from the farms to the people. You know, it's like, no, nobody waited for the government to do it.
That's amazing. Yeah, and there's absolutely has been happening over here as well. I think the Irish always have known how to pull together in these in times like this, particularly from the famine times, you know.
Right.
And I suppose that's seeded with the ancestors who moved across the pond to the US, you know, and that's kind of an intrinsic way of supporting each other in community over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, actually, can I ask you a question?
You can, of course.
I'm curious about the waves of movement from Ireland to the US. Like, there were several waves of Irish people coming over here, and for different reasons, some good, some not so good. So I'm curious if you could just give like a brief little timeline of those different waves.
I'm not a history buff, but you know, the main timeline that I've personally worked with energetically in is the kind of famine, early 1800s, late 1700s timeline. Obviously there was many probably waves before that through slave trades and things like that in much earlier times, but the famine times in particular in Ireland, 1800s, mid 1800 point, there was mass immigration, and what they call the famine ships that travelled from Ireland across to the US, just helping people to find some sort of a better life. But of course, inevitably that didn't really happen for a lot of people. And there was mass souls lost as well in the transition, who were just too sick to even make it to the Americas, in those days. So the 1800s was a pivotal point where there was mass migration and mass loss of souls. So that impact is something that I've been working in myself in helping to transition those souls and to bring home the souls that never got to reconcile with the motherland of Ireland. So
Right.
there's deep work, and we've spoken to this before, of course, because we've worked together on this. So so that's one of the main timelines, and it's still happening. The waves, even through recession times in like the 70s and the 80s, there was mass migration from Ireland in recent times over to the US. In probably more prosperous times in the modern age, in terms of not having to deal with the same illness and other dynamics. So they're the ones I'm aware of. But of course, there's a lot more going back, I would say.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But what's your ancestry? Do you have Irish, don't you?
Yes, yeah. And I would say that's the ancestry that speaks the speaks the most to me. But I have Irish, I have Spanish, Italian, German, Egyptian. Okay, not that much Egyptian. A little French.
Just enough.
Yeah, a little Scandinavian, a little British. So, I'm a hodgepodge. Maybe there's more in there. But I think that from a young age, the Irish energy was flowing through me very strong. Mm-hmm. And I know for a lot of Americans, it's that way, because I think that the energy coming from Ireland is so strong. And so it still activates, it's still speaking to us, it's still very, very alive. And I think that just from being over there, the land itself is just so powerful. Not to say there aren't powerful spots in the rest of Europe, but it's almost like it's doing something. It's holding a creative energy and excitement for life. The spirit of humanity, to me, I felt that flowing so, so strong, and that like anybody could come and be rejuvenated about life in general, just from being there. And so it's serving a purpose, not just for Irish people, but for the world, to really just keep us enthused about being here, to keep us feeling creative and alive and connected. Like I was just totally blown away by the energies over there.
I love that. And yes, I concur for sure. There's a lot of dynamic depth here, and there's so much held here. And that's a whole other conversation. But while we're on the creativity thread here, tell us, how do you, what are you passionate about in helping others through the creative arts? Like, how do you mediate that with people in your work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think baseline, we're all creators. And so we're in this time of unwinding the thousands of years of really being in an abusive power dynamic. We've all been in an abusive relationship and been enslaved into that abusive relationship in some ways, for as long as history talks about. Some of us had it a lot worse than others. But if we bring reincarnation into the picture, we know we've all played a lot of roles. And I feel like the story of Earth is changing. So it is the time where we're stepping into remembering our sovereignty, remembering ourselves as multidimensional creator beings. Mm-hmm. This is what we're doing right now. So when I work, and I work primarily with women, we are unlocking the codes of sovereignty in their body. We're unlocking the codes of creatorship that when we remove or cleanse out this old programming, and we do that in many ways, we activate the soul's energy. The soul is connected to the all that is. The spirit is connected to the all that is, to the creator energy. And so once the body can start like vibing at this similar enough level as that soul energy, then you start to it's like waking up from a weird dream, And I know, because you also do this work, like it's not just one time, it's this continual letting go of this stuff. And sometimes it can feel so dense, so that this spark of life, this creative force, can flow through unhindered, and in the ecstasy from which we were created from an orgasm, in most cases. So that's the creator energy. And when we start letting that creator energy through, it's everything activates. And all of a sudden my students who they go from stages, right? First they go there, they just want to heal, they just want to feel better because it's been so hard, right? So there's a lot of crying. There's a lot of, you have to go through a blaming phase. You have to go through an angry phase. You have to go through all the darker emotions and the things that keep you enslaved in that first stage to find your power. And then once you've kind of gone through that enough, then we start working with basically for women, that's usually when the womb work kicks in. So I could say we do that first, but I think a lot of women just saying the word womb initially, they're like, the feminine has been so suppressed, especially here in North America. I mean, what's happened here is just really horrifying. we are reconciling that in this time, and it's not fun, right? But then there's those of us who've been doing it all along in the background. and so initially, like a woman to think about herself as a creative, ecstatic, sensual being and in charge of her own sexual energy and all that kind of stuff, like that felt it has taboo, it has shame, it has many programs of like, no way can I do that, I'm not allowed to do that. So having to rebel, and when women are like, when I initially would talk to them about the womb work and they'd have all this resistance and all this fear, I'd be like, are you really gonna they'd be like, well, but my father, blah, 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 blah. Or if they were Muslim or something, like, I cannot, that's against this and da, 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 da. And I'd be like, are you really gonna let a man like tell you what you can and cannot be? Are you really gonna say no to your own energy because of some rule that someone else made? Is that really the choice you're making right now? And they're always like, oh, hell no. Like at that point, they sort of get that the only reason they're doing it is to like fit into whatever status quo they were born into. Right. So then they start unwinding that. And then like, I have to say, like any spiritual process, once you start unlocking and saying goodbye to your old way of being, like your whole life makes dramatic shifts. You step out of the program sometimes in a pretty extreme way, and it can be very uncomfortable. It can mean a change of lifestyle, location, friends. It can mean not being as close with your family for a while. It can mean saying goodbye to a lot of things that just simply do not fit anymore. And so
walk in the unknown, isn't it, for a while?
You walk in the unknown, and generally you're getting your ass whooped because you've stepped up your energy, right? And also because I really align people with their higher selves and their spirit team and all that stuff. So they're getting a lot of support. They're getting the reunion with spirit as much as they're getting the reunion with earth. Because as you know, when we unlock those womb codes, you get connected to earth, into the codes of earth, into the original story of humanity, what we're doing here, how connected and how much we belong here, and how much the earth speaks and sings with us and keeps it a magical, exciting, and rich place that we all can co-create together, and that we steward to the earth, all that stuff. And then as we're connected to the cosmos, we are remembering our universal consciousness. We're remembering our star family and the other places we might have been before we came here. We're remembering many lifetimes. All this stuff starts to open up. And so the journey of like how exciting that is to feel reunited with who you really are, it will override your need for the status quo. But and you're also, again, you have just stronger energy at that point. You have stronger intention. You have more support. So the lessons intensify. What you're ready to let go of, what you're ready to feel, what you're ready to see. And a lot of times people are ready to see these abusive patterns that they have submitted to, that they didn't realize they were doing. They start to see the abusive patterns that they are doing to others, which is always even harder. People really don't want to look at how they're the asshole,
Yeah.
But we have to do both. And we all have it all in us because we're human. And we're in duality here. So we really ride both trains. And the idea is to kind of get to the same station, and be able to hold it and say, okay, I can make a choice. I just keep making choices. I just keep resolving the intensity of these two sides, with my true knowing of being an infinite being. So, it's like that kind of stuff. And then when
that's a lot.
Right. It is a lot,
Just like that. Just like that.
Just like that. No, I mean, it's just like grueling. It's a grueling process, but then there is that point, right, where you get sort of enough to the other side where you believe in your sovereignty. You believe in yourself as an unconditionally loving, beautiful being who really means the best for everybody and yourself. You may mess up, but you mean the best. You believe in your ability to heal yourself. You believe in your ability in everybody, like in everybody's ability to heal themselves. And so you just can't subscribe to this like way of being with food and medicine and lifestyle that is completely against what it actually takes to live a happy, harmonious, and like healthful life. Like you can't do those things anymore. You start seeing all the lies around you. Right. And you start wanting to create. So to answer your original question, when all of this opens up, your creative force, your awen, you might call him in Celtic druidry, is unleashed. You start tapping into this force and you start wanting to make stuff, share stuff, and bring that unique spark of the divine through you and into the world. You start wanting to co-create. You start wanting to help others to awaken that. You start having the strength to deal with things like social justice, racial inequality, because you see the larger picture of it. You know that we are all connected through this divine spirit. You know it. It's not just something you've said at the end of yoga class. It's a lived, felt, and embodied experience of being connected to the human race, every single race. And so you know that those people who are being treated the worst are a reflection, are a part of you. And you must stand up and see them in their truth and say, yes, let's do this. Let's make our world better together. I see your pain. I see your suffering the same way that maybe you as a healer and me as a healer have stood in compassion with every client that has moved through. That's the way then the clients, the students, they rise up and they are able to have that same compassion for those who are crying out saying, hey, this sucks. We want better. We don't know the way through exactly. Let's do this. Like, stop turning a blind eye. I need your help. I think that sacred cry is so important. And we really know how much we can empower each other by just being honest, by letting people speak their truth, and by being there for them. And we still get to have boundaries with it, right? We still get to have boundaries, but we know that the end result of getting to move through that and being loved and seen and understood through that means that we can integrate these pieces into the whole. So, that's some of what goes on in this work. Right?
So beautiful, so beautiful. What a powerful transmission. That's yeah, and really, like, even speaking to that process, it looks obviously different for everybody. And I think one of the big parts about doing this work for yourself, you're doing it for your ancestors, you're doing it for all your lines of the matriarchal and the patriarchal lines, and you're really being at service to the greater body of Earth, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like, this is, I pledged my life to this. Before I incarnated, I very clearly remember my decision to come in and to help and to, of course, we're all really overzealous when we're like, in the spirit form, we're like, yeah, Mama, we can do this. And then we're like, like I did this whole rebirthing, and from like the point of my decision to the actual experience of sort of starting to merge my energy into the womb, and all I did in that rebirthing was sob and sob and sob and sob because I didn't want to do it anymore. And I wanted to go back. The forgetting that happens, that starts to happen immediately, the forgetting of that level of connection and wisdom and freedom. It was just like, it's just sucks.
And it does. And it's such an inevitable part, right? That just
Yeah.
forgetting and going back in and retrieving more of yourself and opening deeper and wider and higher all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so crucial. Like the work of opening and exploring yourself and being able to meet yourself. I think, this is the work for these times.
Yeah. Yeah. Bringing so much more consciousness.
Yeah.
And we talk about ancestral healing a lot, and I've focused a lot on that in the last several years. And I tell this story, like, I've been in my family, like on my father's side, we are Irish and Italian and German primarily on that side. But there was never, when you come to the US, no matter what phase of immigration it's been, and really no matter what circumstances you come here, you're asked to erase your history. So every immigrant, maybe until very recently, was asked to really fit into this ideal. And the ideal here was to be like the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I mean, that was the ideal. So people did what they had to do to, they're calling it now like earn their whiteness. I find those kinds of statements to take away from the actual experience of what it's like to have to make the sacrifice to move somewhere, arrive in a really complex situation in which you are doing your best to survive and thrive. Because in Europe, we're not white. We have ethnicity. We all have ethnicity. We all have place. And so in doing ancestral work, of course, what we're doing is healing that passageway where you had to literally leave who you are and everything that made you to fit into a new place. And back in Europe, who you are, your family, your clan, your everything, I mean, it was everything. You didn't have this culture that is created in the United States, which actually I think I incarnated here for this reason, where you could go off and just go on this path and make yourself into anything you wanted. Right. So there's the blessing and the curse of it, right? But I find that the culture here is lost right now because our root has been cut off, because we've forgotten where we came from and who we are. And I don't mean on like an intellectual level. I mean on this deep energetic level where you wake up in the morning and you know who you are, who you're connected to, where you come from, what that means. All the way back to the beginning of time. It's a felt experience. And so the European immigrants are cut off from that. Anyone who came over here as a slave is cut off from that. They were forcibly cut off from that. In my work, when I work with African Americans, we always go back to Africa. Nothing can happen. No healing can happen until that ancestral passageway is claimed, grieved, understood, rebuilt. Nothing can move forward. So it's the same for anybody who's been cut off from their root. If they've been adopted and they have a fragmentation from their original biological family, we have to rebuild that energetically. We have to bring people into that felt experience on those deep energetic levels where that connection still lives, and reconnect their consciousness to it and rebuild those energetic pathways, because the subconscious effect of what it means to know you belong and know where you come from, it can't be understated. It can't be overstated.
Yeah.
Like how necessary that is to move forward in life and to be able to see others from their roots and their culture, and how important that is, and how absolutely important it is that everybody gets to have that and not be stripped of it. So we're in that time now in this country where people are starting to reclaim that. They're shouting, no way are we doing this thing where we have to forget who we are to fit in. No way are we submitting to an abusive authority. And by the way, our entire system is based upon doing that. It's based upon this ideal that you're supposed to meet of being, the rich, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That's the ideal. So if you do that program, you can be fully accepted and get all the benefits. If you don't do the program, you're like, there's no place, there's no system that's going to support you.
Right.
And I don't mean just like picking up an unemployment check or welfare check that, I mean like that deep experience of having a society that knows and sees who you are. It's not trying to make you be something else.
Mm. The great reclamation.
Yeah.
That's powerful, Cece. Yeah. And so there's so many, floundering in this lack of root right now. And it literally is floundering because everything is so chaotic, and it's just one trauma, one news event, next thing piled on top of the other. And it's a critical time for people to really connect with who they are and to really reclaim those roots, right?
Well, we have to, because our system is falling apart, and it's falling apart because it's being rejected on a very deep level, on that deep soul level that says, no way, this is all a lie. We can do better. What was once the dream is now kind of a nightmare for a lot of people worldwide. Keeping this system alive means that we have to have, all this slave labor and all of this unfair circumstances so that the people who have participated correctly in the system can have what they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's a multifaceted, complicated weave, really. There's so much in there, but we are dissecting those roots, and we are seeing the darkness that has really suppressed identity and personal sovereignty right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shit show.
Yeah. Yep. It sure
and we
is.
got the next wave. I really feel like the pedophile thing is hitting in the next wave, but starting now, and people are not like rejecting the idea. They're like, oh, we've gotten strong enough to be able to look at these things and be like, whoa, okay, no way. It's not just like this minority of people who are impassioned in their lives. It's happening in the general public now.
Right.
We're like, yeah, we got them, And I'm like, oh.
It's the deep processes that are happening within people having to face these realities within themselves and within lineages and all of that. It requires such courage, really, and support to be able to do that. And I suppose I just like to speak to that in terms of, that everybody knows that it can be done, and that it actually can. Some of this healing work can be done a lot quicker than it would have been maybe in the last 10 or 20 years. It's processing, right?
It's so much faster now.
Yeah.
And also the young people came into an already emotionally intelligent, psychologically wise situation, because the people before them really did all the things.
Yeah.
And now they're all posted online. So if you want to find support for something, you just Google it. In my day, to how to heal from rape or womanizing or all those things that most of us went through and were really wrecked by. We weren't held in the culture. We didn't have online resources. Everything was hidden in the therapy room. And even the therapists, because we're still just steeped in so much patriarchy, weren't holding that feminine wisdom that understood exactly why you were having a nervous breakdown.
Right. It wasn't integrated. You couldn't be, you weren't able to be transparent. You still had to hide, even if you were, working deeply on healing those shadow aspects, and even now in Ireland, it's still, it's amazing. It's changed so much, but there's been so much repression of the feminine and the dark stuff, dark stuff, that, we are generationally healing, but it's tough stuff. you know, and
Yeah.
we're still in the throes of it, of the deep stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're right in the heart of it everywhere on earth. It's really, it's an intense time.
It is. And so the womb work is pivotal, really, isn't it, to clearing that underbelly of humanity stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to find the original feminine power,
Mm.
to find that, because it's been erased.
Yeah.
That original feminine power is what allows everything that represents or that is a part of the feminine aspect of life to get back into equality. So that includes people of color, that includes any culture that isn't based on like men destroying things to get on top.
Right. Yeah.
So matriarchal cultures, essentially, any
Yes.
matriarchal culture. And again, we need like that deep embodied experience of it. You cannot understand what it is until that spirit awakens inside of you, in your body. And for me and for many women, that happens when the womb codes get activated. It's literally like, I mean, I've done womb cleanses on some women, and after one womb cleanse, they're like,
It's
and they get all the downloads. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Now I know what you mean by like deprogramming the patriarchy. Now I know what you know, it's, and then they're like,
who is this woman?
right, I'm a woman. I don't need your marriage. I don't need your this. I don't need, you know,
Yeah.
and it happens. And then, you know, not to say that like all of relationship would just die, but the yearning for relationship comes from a very, very different place, not for security.
For true partnership or true co-creative union with another.
Yes, co-creative union and the true alchemizing of the masculine and feminine polarities in equality, and not in, you know, not based in domination, suppression, or submission. Just not based. You can't do it.
Yeah. So just speaking, Cece, about these false patriarchal programs, you know, and the necessity, because, you know, there's people that wouldn't even maybe be aware of that running in their systems, you know, how do we start that work? Like what does that look like?
Whew. Well, first of all, I
Yeah.
think you brought up something like really important, and that is, until you know, you don't know. When those systems are running through you, and you've just been born and raised like that, and the entire society is supporting you, you have no idea that it's running through you. And that's the point why when I went to therapy in my early 20s, you know, the therapists themselves had all the patriarchal programming running through them. So,
Yeah.
you know, so where do we start? And
I suppose right now there is so much dismantling of those programs happening anyway, from all of the work that's been done through many decades and beyond.
it's happening now. We can see, yes,
it is,
finally happening.
And it's more transparent, right? But we'll say, would you speak to, maybe, is it the sovereignty piece of really reclaiming that, or what else do you think is involved?
I mean, I think what's happening now is exciting, because I think the people who were incarnated to dismantle these programs, we've been doing it for a while now. And now we're seeing it finally happening in our society. And because all these secrets are coming out and it's finally happening in our society, and we have so many leaders who are literally just like, I don't know, they're just projections of this system dismantling. You know what I mean? It's like they're not even real. It's hard to say that the people who are the most resistant are starting to just see it, because it's what's happening in the culture. So even my father, my father is 77 and like couldn't be more of an old school patriarchal dude, you know, like he really is my biggest teacher of what I'm rebelling against this lifetime. but even he like agrees with me now about stuff because it's in the culture. Even he used to just yell at me when I would talk about equal rights or things like that. He would just be like, "Rah, rah, rah," the whole thing. And now he's like, eh, see what you're saying. And I'm
Amazing.
like, okay, so he's always my gauge of where we're actually at.
Yeah. Good gauge.
And I see him shifting. He is like this. Then in the news, I can't even watch the news anymore. They're all just lying to us and giving us, bullshit. And I'm like, yep.
Right. Right. So it's happening. It's the awareness for, disengaging from these programs and seeing where you're caught in narratives around supporting some of these older structures, really weeding those out, would you say?
Yeah, I would say, well, there's many levels, right? There's always going to be the people, the pioneers. And so there's still those pioneers. There's still those who are unwinding these programs in their bodies and their whole lives changing and like everything we sort of already talked about. And then there are those who they just weren't meant to do that work. They were meant to sort of reap the benefits of everybody else doing it. And I would say, again, when we see that change, when we see the societal change, when we see people changing their minds, not because they did like 20 years of deprogramming, but because like it's held so strongly in the culture itself has changed. We've reached that. We've crossed the threshold,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I say, wow. I mean, it's just obvious. Like, wow, it's true. Like all the brown people are like waiting on us all the time and making these things for us in other countries for nothing. Like that is happening. Maybe that isn't the way it's supposed to be. Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true, and that's beautiful, because there are the waves of newly embodied souls that have come in to hold a new energy around that
Yeah.
those patriarchal energies can't stay.
Right. I mean, these are people like it's hard, but they're not having it.
Yeah.
They're just not having it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Different. Yeah. Totally different energy signature, for sure.
a completely different. I mean, and there's so many of them, and they, I think, talk to each other a lot. So they're very empowered by their own circles.
Yeah.
And I think like probably you had this experience more where I was sort of the only one and amongst my peers, not that everyone, I actually grew up with a lot of amazing people, but the particular like spiritual awakening journey I was on, I wasn't surrounded by like groups of people doing that. you
No.
know I mean, it was like me, and then I would go on these trips where I'd go into a program and I'd meet more of those people, but in my daily life for most of my upbringing and my 20s, like I didn't have like a spiritual tribe. It didn't really exist then.
No, for sure it didn't. We
Yeah.
were woven together through the ethers to help each other, but yeah, it took a lot more striving to connect,
Yeah.
and really investigating, which is it's fantastic. We have it all now. It's all kind of merging, and we're all learning how to dance with one another, which is a whole discovery in itself.
Yeah. Well, and I think also people our age and talking like in their 40s, there actually are a lot more people now who have done a lot of work, even in the last 10 years, because grandmother medicine, the ayahuasca medicine, she came in and she just started cleaning, and this entire global community was formed because of that medicine. And so that's not our path. Like I always tell people, I was born with a hyperactive pineal gland. Like I can't really do anything that makes it more sensitive. But these
Yeah.
ceremonies like have awakened en masse a lot of people. And so there actually are many more people our age now. And I'm just sort of getting used to it because I'm like, oh, okay, they actually have done the work. They actually are speaking from an integrated place. And that's kind of exciting to me. And then you have like the whole youth who they get all the things too. I talk to them like I would talk to you, and they're just younger, so they have maybe some more time on earth before they're like grown-ups, but
Yeah.
these spiritual concepts and experiences, like, they get very well.
Yeah,
It's normal.
it's already integrated in the DNA. They've already come
Hmm.
in with it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I love you bringing in the mother plant and just maybe uh, speaking to the power of nature and the elemental consciousness, right? In how intrinsic that is as part of our allyship, I suppose, in healing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people remember, that's it. Just
Yeah.
remember who you are and what we're doing here, and that we are all connected, and that the
Mm.
world is magical and like interesting. We don't have to create a whole other system on top of it that destroys it. And at the same time, there's so many technological advancements that were we to bring those technological advancements in a way that actually was integrated and revered nature, then we'd really have it made on this planet, right? It
Yeah.
would be like sitting pretty. I was channeling the other day, and my guides were like, imagine that you went home and you sat in your house, and the intelligence of your house was so strong that it could read your mood and know exactly how you needed to feel held in that moment, and just sort of like bring the vibrational state into harmony, so that as you relax into your house, you were like,
That would be fantastic.
yeah.
With elemental technologies.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Oh, wow. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think we're that far away. I think we have the technology to do that now. It just need to be implemented and affordable.
definitely. Definitely it's there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, so let's talk about, is there something that you would like to weave in around what are you working on currently? You're working with a group, aren't you? Or you were working with groups?
I just graduated my Lightschool arts program, which is, my baby, really. I did my first trial run when I was at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing in 2006. But um, so here we are in 2020, and I guess I did my fifth class, and I take students through a year-long program of like spiritual alchemy and creativity, where these students wrote a book. So they each wrote like a full book, and I connect people with their guidance and their higher self, so that they're actually channeling these books through and they really reach their highest creative potential. So I was completely overwhelmed by the work that came through, and
That's
what was
amazing, Cece.
created. It was at a much higher level than like I could have imagined. Really fantastic. I co-taught this year with my friend Lizzie Rose, who went through 2 light school years with me, and now she co-taught, and she helped with the writing department, because she is really good at like structure and deadlines and stuff, and sometimes I can lose that. And she's also a magical healing being in her own right, and so so that was amazing. We just finished that year. And I work very deeply with the Celtic medicine wheel. So we are entering into the vortex of each direction, each experience that lives in these quadrants. I
Yes.
try to really bring people in so they understand it on that deeper level, and not just like, all right, we're calling in the directions. What does that even mean? Like, that these forces and these natural harmonies of life are we form a deep relationship with
Mm.
them, and we learn. I call it like a bardic training. So we learn, like the ancient Irish bards. Like, we are weaving together really a deep level of presence and embodiment and transmission in the work. So it's really not just about creating something, but allowing that transmission to come through and really standing and singing the truth of that. Um, so it's really fun. And then in my own work, um, I love to paint animals, So right now I'm working
Yeah.
on like a really large wall-sized um, herd of horses
Oh,
who sort of live in the mists.
fabulous.
So I'm really excited about that. And hopefully when all of this is over, we'll be able to have some nice shows again. But I'm kind of
Yeah.
creating another body of work to be able to show next year.
And is it
Yeah.
all centered around the animals, or it's
It tends to be.
yeah. They're
Like,
just so powerful. The transmission coming from the deer, even, and I've seen your other work. It's phenomenal.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, that's the point, right? That's
Yeah.
really why I feel like I'm here, is to translate spirit's love and wisdom to us through as many ways possible, but certainly through the arts.
Mm.
And, painting is wonderful because when you're done, you have something physical that can last your whole life, something you can see and touch, something that's there every time you walk in the room. There's this animal loving you and transmitting the original code of earth into your body. Like, that was the point.
Mm.
So
Yeah. And I think that's actually one of my coming close to to closing up our conversation is your download about how you see us living optimally on the earth at this time. We're in such a state of flux. What would you, I mean, there's working with the earth, but what would you feel like is a really critical practice or personal ritual that would be helpful to bring us into a new time?
this, when you stay in deep relationship with Mother Earth, then you stay in deep relationship with evolution, with life as it's unfolding. While you still may freak out, will have less questions because you will just simply be in the evolutionary process with Earth.
Mm.
And then that naturally extends to each other. When I spend a lot of time here with my woods, or I'm out with the waterfalls and just sort of sitting, we go into our original state. If we really just quiet down, we're not there just like bringing our boombox and drinking beer already, whatever. But I mean, that happens a lot too. Unfortunately, we've had to close a lot of spots up here because people come and they disrespect, and they don't have that attunement. They know they need to be in nature. Like, they drive hours to be here, and then they kind of trash it when they get here, but they still need to come.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I think that's like the number one. If you live in the city, that's very, very hard. I lived in the city for many years. I did every meditation practice, yoga, channeling, like snuggle parties, like whatever I could do to get that connection, work with my healer. And I really admire people who are able to stay connected and still be in the cities. I know people, they have strong personal practices, spiritual practices, and they do them, and that keeps them centered. It didn't really matter for me. Like, I had to get out.
Yeah. So it's listening to your personal unique needs and what you need to feel clear.
Yeah. So
beautiful. Yeah, that's it. Well, that's what it's all about, right? And I mean, Ireland, you've been here, and how potent she is, and maybe we can speak a little bit, transition into what we're both cooking around Ireland and the sacred isles here, and those nature connections.
Right. So I just want to tell everybody, I know, like, I've been talking a lot, but Mara here is one amazing, beautiful, high level healer who is so in touch with the land, its spirits, its intention, its energies, and how that affects people and how that affects culture. She's so deeply enmeshed with that understanding, which is why when I went to Ireland, I had to spend time with her to experience that. And she took me to some beautiful spots. But in Ireland, it's all about the land, right?
Yeah.
And so immediately, I knew that I wanted to do something with her. But what we're doing is, bringing in we want to work with this ancestral healing for Irish Americans, and really for anybody who feels that deep, deep connection to what Ireland is offering, because there's something there for you then. And to help heal this fragmented passageway that has split off so many Irish Americans, European Americans, from their indigenous root, from their sense of belonging and knowing who they are. So we're going to be diving deep into that. And do you want to talk a little bit about how you're approaching that?
Yeah, well, thanks, Cece. And thank you for kind words. It was an absolute joy to have you over here. I just I loved the refreshing sass of the New Yorker in Ireland. It was amazing. So we had some magical times and more to come. But yeah, for me it is a motherland. It is a motherland and a coming home to the mother, and the relationship that you develop with the land here and with the sacred places, the holy waters, the wells, the sacred stones, all of that. How you move through the landscape here can really open up all of those creative gateways that you're such a whiz at helping people explore and open and embody, right? So I think the synergy of working with the land here and opening to the elemental energies and to the magical realms that really assist that pure innocence and that sitting back into yourself, your true self, you know, free of trauma and free of the suffering of dislocation, really, because that dislocation of the Irish collective consciousness and all that left these lands and then merged with other cultures and other lines that really, you know, all of that needs to be reunited with the motherland, whether physical or energetic. So I feel like that's part of our weave with the journey that the two of us are going to bring people on. And essentially, it's an online journey to begin with, which we hope will manifest into a physical journey at a perfect point. So, yeah. Anything you'd like to add to that, Cece?
Yeah. So, first of all, I'm like, as soon as you're talking about that, I'm like, I want to take this course. I can't wait.
You are. We are.
But yeah, my part is going to be with the creative aspect. So I'm going to be holding the creative aspect, and we're going to be learning a song or two, because so much of what happens in Ireland is expressed through the arts. And so I'm going to be bringing the music in and also working. We'll have a visual arts project that helps you map through what Mara is teaching. And that's unfolding right now because this curriculum's unfolding. But I know that when I was in Ireland, like the spirit of creativity is so alive that everywhere you go, it's being expressed. And so to do this work, we need to have an immersive experience with the arts as well as the energies and the land and the wells and the myth and
and that is the magic, because you really, the sites over here, having worked with so many of them, the energies are multifaceted, and definitely you've got to listen as to where is calling, where is open, are the guardians allowing dialogue with this place, and can we actually receive or harness reciprocal gifts from these places. So I think that's part of the magic and the mystery of weaving this journey together, is that whatever group gathers for this work together will be able to see what the specific pathways on the land are that want to engage with us, and we move into our time together. So yeah, that's how I feel it. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
excited.
So excited. And then hopefully once we're on the other side of all this, which I do believe we will get to the other side, we can meet physically in Ireland and bring some groups through to these wonderful spots.
Yeah, and that's where the potency lies then, you know, to receive that healing, because this land has healed me over and over, and also challenged me and expanded me on many levels, and continues to. So it's just, it's magical to see people, what they receive when they come here, you know, what opens and expands for them. So yay. So our Ireland journey, so yeah, we're going to have more on that soon. So thanks
In
for,
the fall. In the
yeah,
fall, September 2020.
equinox time, powerful. So Cece, I mean, there's so much that we can dive into around what's happening at these times, but I think that really speaking to what's already been spoken and what has been transmitted through you has been beautiful. Is there anything that you're feeling your heart wishes to share before we close the conversation?
Just thank you so much, and feels good to be with you and feel your spirit and feel the sisterhood and feel the reflection. You know, these are the important things right now when everything is so chaotic, to know, wow, there's someone else is experiencing this in the way that I do, and has these energies move through them and understands what I'm doing. So I just feel grateful for the opportunity to sit in that with you and to share it with others. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it. It's so important for us right now
Yeah.
to know that we're not alone, to know that things are moving and progressing, and that, you know, we're rising up together, all
Yeah.
of us, even if it does look the opposite right now. But yeah. So I'm going to put all your details attached to this for everybody. Are you working one-on-one with people as well at the moment?
Yeah. I
You
take
are.
a small number of clients at this point, but I do have some openings right now.
Great, great. Well, we'll put that out there if someone's feeling that call as well.
Okay.
So much love to you. Thank
So
you,
much love
sister.
to
And
you.
to the beautiful dear spirit, does she have a name?
No.
No.
People have named her and they're like, that's her name. I'm like, okay, you take that
She's
with
my
you.
she's mine.
But I mean, right. I mean, she's my essence ultimately, right? It's your
Right.
own. I think pretty much she's just my essence. So,
Beautiful.
dear Cece.
Thank you, sister. Have a wonderful rest of your day from the Emerald Isle here to New York in the woods
You're welcome.
and back
Okay.
again. Bye.
Bye.